this dichotomy of like either you're like a Luddite and you're off screens and flip phones only, or you're a token maxer and you're all freaking in. Like, hi, I live in the middle.
Yeah.
And I want the amazing things that tech can give me.
Yeah.
And I also want to be a healthy, well-adjusted human who enjoys the world. Like, can we not figure out this sort of middle zone? Like, I've been thinking about it. Tell me if this resonates with you.
Yeah.
As Goldilocks mode, not too much, not too little.
Yeah.
It's kind of just right.
I love that.
I'm Laurie Segall, and you're listening to Mostly Human, a tech podcast through a human lens.
I'm so happy to be here with you. I'm a longtime fan, just full disclosure.
Well, I am too, and I brought you something.
Oh.
Is that okay if I give it to you now? I have a little gift.
Wow. I love that you came on the
high tech.
You brought an offering of some sort.
I brought you a kazoo. And really annoying offering, some might say.
I love it so much. And there's a reason why,
There is a reason why I brought you a kazoo. Not to just annoy the crap out of your family, friends, and coworkers, but because it increases your airflow.
I love that. I love that.
Because I'm guessing you do spend a lot of time on your laptop.
Oh, do I? And before we did this interview, I was asked to kind of monitor how much I was sitting.
Oh.
And I think the headline was too much. Like, I started counting the hours yesterday.
Yeah.
And I don't say like minutes. We're talking hours.
Yeah.
Like, it must have been like 9, 10. And I'm like, I promise I'm not just watching like bad reality television. I was working.
Yeah.
But like, it was an extraordinary amount of time sitting, which is a good way to introduce the topic of today's conversation. We've talked so much about what tech has done to our minds.
Yeah.
But honestly, I don't think I've ever really talked about what it does to our bodies.
I know, right?
Thank God for you. This is the topic that you are bringing to the table. What got you interested in this?
It was feeling like crap got me interested in this. I think it was, during the pandemic, everything obviously went online and it was kind of amazing, right? Like we adapted so quickly to being on WhatsApp with our parents and Zoom and, lying on the couch and watching Netflix when we couldn't go outside.
Yeah.
And I think we all felt pretty crappy and that made sense. It was a pandemic after all. But 2023 was the moment where we were coming out of that and I noticed just because we were allowed to go outside didn't mean that things had shifted back into real quote unquote life. My life was totally still. Zoom. My job went remote. It was just this constant sort of screen time. And combined with that, I just sort of noticed I would close my laptop at the end of the day and still have just enough energy to sort of crawl over to the couch to scroll. That was it.
I just really understand that and relate to that.
Yeah. Well, everybody did. Everybody I talked to was like, I'm drained. I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
And like you said, we have heard too much screen time is fracturing our attention. It's making people anxious, depressed. But to me, this felt so physical.
Yeah.
And so it made me realize the gaps in my basic biology knowledge and how little I knew about how the body would respond to a constant, not just barrage of screens, but all the sitting. I had heard sitting is the new smoking a decade ago.
Right.
But I was kind of like, okay, and what?
I'm supposed. And so what?
Yes,
I think this is what we were saying even before the camera started rolling. It's so often now we just hear these platitudes that, that we're looking at on social media and they're getting lots of views and everyone's so outraged, shocking. But we're so what?
Yeah.
And what? Now
Totally.
what? I think that's the part that I kind of struggle with.
Yeah.
And I think your book really kind of gets into the now what and how do we shift culture. Before we get into it, I just want to look at your background, which is fun. You're a longtime tech journalist.
Yeah.
I imagine, because I know I'm a longtime tech journalist. I've seen some weird things in my career. There was during COVID, I was embedding with QAnon, which was, while falling in love with my husband. Yeah, it was such a nice, beautiful, I remember it fondly. I'm curious about you. Are there stories that stick with you? Any tech products? Any what is the weirdest thing? What's keeping you, when you're writing the film of your career, the book of your life, what's the chapter that you're Wow, that is really something that stuck with me.
Well, it's interesting to me that when you have these experiences with tech, at the time, it feels like, what is happening? This is crazy, gonna change society. Yeah. And then 5-10 years later, you're like, duh, like nobody even, I mean, the first time I got an iPhone, I was like, holy, what is this? This is crazy. I can be at the playground watching my kids and also like checking the library hours and emailing my boss and all of it at the same time. Like we forget how incredibly life-altering that was, especially as a parent for me. I felt like, oh, I can actually like maybe manage both.
Yeah.
Obviously, that was not entirely true as the years went on and we knew how hard that was. But I think it kept me in the game, like for my career, being able to have a smartphone, which is like a kind of big statement, but I'm standing by that. And so the most recent similar sort of situation I guess I've had is, I mean, I'm really having a great time playing around with LLMs.
Oh, me too.
Honestly, can't help it.
I go back and forth between Chat and Claude.
Me too.
It's like, I'm just like dating all around, if you will, with these LLMs.
What do you think? Yes. Totally.
I literally took an answer from Claude, put it into ChatGPT, and said, rate this answer.
Yes.
I mean, I love it. I'm totally with you on this.
And I love to prompt something and then watch the thinking process. I'm like, where's it going? What's it asking itself? Like, how is that working? I'm fascinated. So recently, a few months ago, I created, I keep thinking I'm a journalist. We don't make a crazy amount of money. I wish I had like a personal advisory board. So I created one on ChatGPT. I have a CFO, a CMO, my longtime alleged therapist, a journalist mentor, who else do I have on there? Oh, a showrunner.
Oh my God.
I think those are the top 5. Oh, a lawyer.
Well,
you gotta have a lawyer.
I mean, and lawyers are so expensive.
They're
for journalists to have to pay for lawyers. This is like the unspoken. I hope people take a lot from this podcast, but it is really to keep us out of jail. You really need or getting sued.
Exactly right. Yeah. And so for me, like to be able to look, do I take all their advice? No. But what I love doing is presenting a sort of strategic question to the advisory board, having them each answer from their perspective. Like, so financially, this is what you're saying. These would be the implications. Or my therapist in quotation marks would be like, you have to ask how much energy it would take to do this project. Can you manage that right now? So they each come with their own way, and then I ask them to debate amongst themselves and present me with the least worst options that I have.
Wow.
It's fun.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is so much more fun than how I'm just kind of using them to play off. And did you train them each, or are they?
Yes, I tried to give them a person to, go like sort of model themselves on. And I tried to also give them a set of ethical guidelines, right? Like the financial person, I want to make clear, like I am not about extracting people. 10x returns is not the goal.
Right.
And so like I tried to give them guidelines as to what I was looking for to model themselves after people I admire.
I love that.
And also like I will disagree. Like, I will say like, I think the board is missing something, and they're like, good point. Of course they're like, good point. Yeah. But they work for me, so they have to say that.
Exactly.
And it's just really fun.
That's amazing. I love that so much. And I really am a big believer that like, we've been through these moments in tech where like you do something and then nothing is ever the same after this, but really then it becomes so normalized. Like back in when I got my start, it was like, oh, sleep in a stranger's home or get in a stranger's car, like Uber, Airbnb, not just, not just your 20s, like just in general.
But the way you say it.
Yeah, but it seemed so crazy. And then all of a sudden it wasn't. And then all of a sudden it was just life. And so I'm actually experiencing the same thing with LLMs that you talk about that I think is so fascinating for the good, the bad. You say in the book, tech is not neutral. I totally agree with you. Like there are all these things we have to discuss. And I think if we look at Note to Self, show, this was like one of the first shows that really treated our relationship with devices as a subject worth a show, which was so cool and
really
groundbreaking and forward thinking.
Thank
Bored
you.
and Brilliant your book, your other book, it asked what we lose creatively when we're never bored, which I think is such a brilliant question. Again, a question that was ahead of its time.
It was. The book didn't do as well as it probably would do now.
Don't you hate that,
yes.
right? Like, can you just republish? What was the shift for you from mind to body, to Body Electric, which is your new book? Was this always where it was headed, or was this something that really specifically, was there something that really specifically redirected you?
Yeah, I think, again, it was for me that sense of not just, I can't concentrate, or, I'm, feel like I'm sucked into my screens. It was more, my back hurts.
Yeah.
And I don't like the way my shoulders look rounded over, and tech neck's a real thing, and I feel anxious. And those all felt so visceral to me. Yeah. And it made me think, like, have we neglected the fact that we're contorting our anatomy around these objects all day long? Like, we contort around them. They don't contort around us.
Right.
I mean, are the Meta glasses going to take off? That's a question I have for you. We can discuss. But right now, we, open up our phone and we have to hold it a certain way to look at it. I think there's more sort of audio interfaces are coming into the world, but we're definitely not there yet. I carry around my laptop everywhere I go, and wherever I can put it, that's how I arrange my body in order to do the things I need to do. And so it just really begged the question, like, wait a second, what about our blood, flesh, bones? How do they respond to this?
It's literally the most human question you could ask about technology, and not enough people are asking it, but we're all feeling it to some degree.
Totally.
I loved the opening sentence of your book. The first sentence is, "I'm scared to write this book." Now, just like, for reference, you, even before tech journalism, have done all sorts of journalism that has taken you into high risk scenarios. You've worn a bulletproof vest. You've been trained in kidnapping situations. You've learned, this was my favorite, to decode stick signals left by guerrilla fighters to warn of homemade bombs.
Yes, these were back in the day when I was a foreign news producer and running around the world.
So you've been running around the world. You've been in some gnarly situations, but you're sitting down to write this book and you say, "I am scared to write this book." Why? What were you so afraid of?
I was afraid of that feeling when you look up and you don't know what time it is, and you realize you haven't peed in 3 to 4 hours. Your left foot is asleep. Yeah. Your vision is blurry. You feel a disassociation with the world going around you. And, that's doable occasionally, but writing a book requires hours at your laptop. And some of it is delightful. When you get into flow and you feel like you're connecting ideas and your creative juices are flowing, it is the best feeling in the world.
Yeah.
But all good things must come to an end. The flow cycle does not last for 8, 9, 10 hours. It cannot.
Yeah.
And so, how do you manage the physical capacity that you have when you're working with a machine that never stops? That's what I was nervous about, finding the relationship between.
And ironically, this is also what the book is really about, right? So
let's be really meta about it.
It's this is such a meta thing, because you're talking about the impact of what happens when we're sedentary like this, and what happens when we wrap ourselves around technology, or technology wraps itself around us to some degree. And now you're sitting here writing this book, and I think there was a bit in it where I saw a study you cited in 2024. A study found that sitting more than 10 hours a day significantly raises by 40 to 60%. That is definitely significant.
Yeah.
The risk of heart attack, heart failure, and cardiovascular death.
Yeah.
So I get it.
Yeah.
I'd be afraid to, now that now that I've read your book, or I'm like, whoa, this is very, very real.
But I don't want to freak people out, because I think I felt relieved that the answers were pretty simple.
Totally. And I want to get into all of that. A part of the book, you teamed up with scientist Keith Diaz.
Yeah.
And you did the Body Electric study. So tell us about this study. How did this partnership with Columbia University Medical Center come together? And if I remember correctly, you got something like 20,000 participants, which is pretty extraordinary.
We did,
How did this all happen?
So I was feeling crappy back to that moment. And I actually was listening to the radio and heard about a study that had been done by this guy at Columbia University Medical School who was looking for the least amount of movement that the human body needs in order not to die an early death. Like setting the bar pretty darn low.
Right.
But what I loved was that he had actually found the answer. He had found that 5 minutes of gentle movement, walking for 2 miles an hour on a treadmill, a stroll, actually had outsized results when it came to people's glucose, their blood pressure, their mood, their ability to focus, their fatigue levels. In his lab, he had found this.
Wow.
And so I was like, oh, what? Like, that's all we have to do? Like, the idea was like this interstitial movement throughout the day. And to be clear, it didn't matter if you worked out in the morning. If you sat for all those hours the rest of the day, you still face these health harms and probably hated your job at the end of the day after sitting there for 8 hours. So I was like, the man has the answer. So I called him up. I was like, dude, why aren't we all doing this? This should be in schools and workplaces everywhere. And he's like, yeah, think about it though. You walk into kindergarten and what is the first thing you learn? That sitting and looking ahead or looking down is what a good student or a good worker looks like. We have software now that tracks people's to make sure that they're in their documents and that their cursor is constantly moving around.
It's crazy.
Sitting is how we define
success.
Diligence, success. Exactly. He's like, this is never going to happen. And it made me so mad, Laurie. I was like, no, but that's wrong. Because the other thing that there has been research into, and we can go deeper into this, is that actually taking breaks is good for working habits. That it actually is not a bad thing when it comes to people's work habits. So I said to him, I was like, well, this is stupid. We need to ask people if they can do it. You don't know if you don't try. You've had this small thing in the lab and I'm so tired of academics being locked, having their amazing things that they're learning locked up in their labs. Let's get it out into the world. So we invited listeners, my NPR listeners. We were like, are you feeling like crap? If so, would you like to join a clinical trial, a scientific study to find out if we can integrate movement breaks into our days and to track the effects that they have? So they could sign up to take a 5-minute movement break every half hour during long sedentary screen time, every hour or every 2 hours. Because we also wanted to test, maybe it was impossible to do every half hour. Maybe 2 hours was better. Let's see what they feel. So we had 23,000 people sign up. We crashed the servers at Columbia because they don't plan for that many people.
What a great signal, though, that, when you go out to people and say, are you feeling bad? You want to be a part of this? A lot of people are like, no, I don't want to be a part of a medical study, this and that. And it turns out all of us are feeling the same thing that you really saw, that you felt.
Totally. And let's be clear, these are public radio listeners. And so it's a self-selecting group of people, obviously, people who are interested in
curious.
Yes, exactly. All those things. So we had them sign up, but before we actually did that, Keith invited me to come up and enter his actual study in his lab myself. And I love to be a lab rat. I know you do too.
Love it.
So fun. Yeah. So I was like, I am so in. So the week before, I had to wear 3 different accelerometers and pedometers. I had to wear a glucose monitor. I can't even remember the other things that I had to. So they wanted to track what was my baseline, right? How did I process sugar? How much did I move in a typical day? Was I baseline a healthy person? And I was. And so I was like, I was skeptical that this would really make that much of a difference, just taking little breaks. So the first day I went up to his lab and I brought my laptop and they were like, they gave me an office. They were like, we just want you to sit for 8 hours. You can take a break to use the bathroom. You'll have lunch. And then we're going to track your vital signs and you'll do a survey throughout the day of how your concentration is, your mood, your fatigue levels. And it sucked. It was just the usual. I was like, I basically just came up here to do what I usually do. And then I fell asleep on the subway going home. And then the other day that I went, every half hour, Keith's assistant, would tap me on the shoulder and lead me over to this treadmill in the corner, and she'd tap in 2 miles per hour, and I would take this 5-minute stroll. And I'm not going to lie, at first I was like, well, this is annoying. I just wrote 2 emails. Like, I have so much more I need to get done.
Right.
But after around midday, I started to realize I was using the time to strategize and be smarter about the work that I did. I also didn't need to wear the sweatshirt that I had brought with me last time. It was freezing in that office, but I didn't need it because I was moving. And when they came back to me with my actual biological results, my glucose was cut in half, my blood pressure dropped by 5 points. I rated my fatigue as far lower, my ability to concentrate much higher. And this was the weird part. I actually rated my productivity as higher. Even though I felt like I got less done, the work that I did get done was better. I didn't have to go back to it the next day. Like, I read to the end of emails and responded to the actual question that someone was asking me, as opposed to, when you're banging through email and you're like, yeah, let me know. And they're like, I did let you know. Right. It was at the end of the email. Slow down. So it just was it felt doable, and it felt revolutionary in the smallest, tiniest way possible.
Well, isn't that right? That sometimes the most revolutionary things are actually these tiny little things that aren't so tiny.
Totally.
When we look back at it.
Totally.
And so this is from you just getting up for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Every 30.
This was every 30 minutes. So it was pretty intense.
Yeah.
And I that was what I wanted to know. I was like, are people actually going to do this? Yeah, totally. Yeah. So we invited them. Everybody did their own baseline. And then they did for 2 weeks. We had them track. And this was all on Columbia. This was a proper IRB scientific study. I did not touch the data. It was all anonymized. It was rigorous. And in the end, after 2 weeks, so we saw that the people who had the most compliance were the people who stuck to it for every 2 hours, because that was easier, right?
Yeah.
But we did see across the whole thing that 80% of people who decided to commit themselves to the movement breaks actually completed the full 2 weeks. 80% actually enjoyed taking breaks, which was fascinating. We saw fatigue levels drop up to 28%.
Wow.
We saw, and this was, again, the surprise to me, we saw productivity rise by 4%. So not high, but it didn't make it worse. And we also saw mood was just better. People were like, I actually had enough energy for the 4:00 meeting. Yeah. I actually had enough energy to come home and play with my kids.
Yeah.
It just felt like life wasn't quite as exhausting and tiring and depressing.
Yeah. No, I hear that. It's so funny. I say to my husband all the time, I'm like, God, I'm so tired. So tired. He's like, are you sure you're not just stressed? I'm like, I just feel tired.
Yeah.
But I think there really is that correlation. It's like I'm on screens all day. And if it's not this screen, it's that screen. And if we're not here, then we're there. And and I do think it really, I was really blown away by these results. And in a weird way, I wasn't shocked, because I think that we're all feeling this to some degree. The part that was crazy to me was that this is from the book, it had comparable physical effects to someone starting diabetes medication and exercising 5 days a week, 30 minutes a day for 6 months.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you make of that?
Well, I didn't understand why, because I said to Keith, I was like, I don't get it. Can you just break it down for me? What is happening? And so I'll just go through, let's nerd out for a minute, because it's so interesting.
I love it.
So I hate to tell you, listener, I'm going to give you an image that you will never be able to shake. And I apologize in advance, but it's for our own good. So when you sit, you are actually kinking your body in 2 places, your hips and your knees, kind of like a garden hose, right? So you have a garden hose, when water is flowing, it works great. Yay. But if you kink it, the water starts to back up, right? Yeah. And pressure builds. And at some point, the pressure has to go somewhere. So the same thing is happening with your blood flow in your body when you're sitting for hours and hours on end. That means that fresh oxygen, glucose, are not getting into your leg muscles. Your leg muscles do an incredible job. When they are stimulated, they actually suck in the oxygen and the glucose and release other chemicals, push them up to your brain. Right. So when you're switching between like, I got to answer this email. Oh, I got a text. Ooh, should I put that on my calendar?
Right.
All that switching, you're burning through glucose and oxygen, right? Your brain needs those things.
Something physical is actually happening to you.
Exactly.
Right.
And if you keep going for too long, you start to build up CO2. And usually the brain is like, I got you. It flushes out the CO2.
Right.
It brings in the new oxygen, the more of the sugar to keep going. But at some point, you have to refill the system.
Yeah.
So when you have that buildup of CO2 and it doesn't get flushed out, that's when you get that foggy feeling.
Yeah.
I can't concentrate. What am I doing? Wait, what was I doing?
Right.
Sound familiar?
Yeah.
And it's an actual physical mechanism that we are talking about.
This isn't random. This isn't just you.
No.
I mean, I think that is such an interesting. Thank you for nerding out like that. That was a total.
There's
it was a
more
worth
if you
it.
want.
Yeah, that was a total worth it nerd out. I mean, one of the things, and I don't mean to just read scary quotes, but we can read scary quotes because we have solutions.
Yes.
But you said you estimate an estimate you have in the book is that the average American adult now spends the equivalent of 187 days per year sitting.
Yeah.
That means over half a year sitting.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
I know. And the average 19-year-old, it's estimated, moves as much as the average 60-year-old.
Wow.
And it's not because they're lazy, and it's not because they're bad people or addicted to their screens.
Yeah.
This is a design issue, right? We have built this world around sitting and looking at screens. And so I think what we're also talking about, in addition to biology, is we're talking about a culture that needs to normalize basic biology.
Yeah.
That the body needs movement. It needs to have breaks. It's delightful that you can have 8 agents working on your behalf. But as we go forth, and need judgment and decision-making skills and deciding, is this good information? Is it not?
Yeah.
We have to think of ourselves as athletes, right? We got to be in it for the long haul. And how does an athlete treat their body? They give it rest. They give it the right food. They give it water. They know the power of working hard, but then also pulling back. And I think we need to think about that, not just in, soccer players or, airline pilots for that matter, but us, the information workers, the lowly information workers.
Yeah. I mean, especially as kind of AI, as you're saying, completely reshapes humanity and our role in the world to some degree. I think it goes to my next question. You just said this. We've built our lives around screens.
Yeah.
This is a world designed and optimized for convenience. Now we click a button and food comes. We click a button, a car comes. Everything is optimized. Silicon Valley is selling a frictionless world. How do you design a world that is just less sedentary? Are there specific things you would do? Are there specific things you would say to people who are listening to actually, I don't know, figure it out?
So in the short term, there are things you can do. So I'm sure many people have a standing desk. Yeah. I hate to tell you that actually the research is in, and there's been a ton of studies, and it's the movement that you need. So standing is just another way of being sedentary. Right. So if you
just a least comfortable way, honestly. I would just rather sit if we're going to have,
Yeah, totally. But if we can say okay, so keep your standing desk. If it works for you as a sort of prompt to move, right? Then during Zoom meetings, say hi to your colleagues and then make it okay to shut off the cameras so you can shuffle in place or march in place. Or I, as often as possible, say to people, do you mind if we actually just do an old school phone call so I can walk and talk to you, especially if it's not something I need a spreadsheet in front of me, right?
Yeah.
If I'm checking in with a friend or checking in with a colleague just to see, how they're doing, I loved walking. I think better walking while I'm really able to listen to them. So, just little things like that. Or deciding, this other woman said to me, she's like, we're actually not allowed to get up from our desk. I was like, what? So she got a smaller water bottle. Which I was like, that kind of doesn't make sense, but okay. Just as a way to be I'm out, so she could go the 2 floors to go get water and come back. That's painful to me. But I also hear from we had a lot of teachers try to do this with their classes, and they were like, the kids clearly need movement, and it has been shown that getting movement for kids increases their comprehension, their memory, all of those things that we need them to be doing. And also, why not? It's easy to change in your Google, make it a 60-minute meeting, turn it into a 55-minute meeting.
Right.
That's a setting that bosses can do just to say, not only should you have a break, but also how about you think about what we just talked about in our meeting before you click over to the next meeting, right? These are actually things that are beneficial, not just to the worker, but to the workplace, to productivity, to the way that we want to live.
It almost feels like there needs to be training for a lot of these corporations to help them understand, this hasn't actually been an emphasis. Yeah. We haven't had this a part of the cultural conversation, and you talk a lot about that, how do we actually make this part of the cultural conversation. We've now had the conversation, and we can still have it, God help us, on children and social media and AI and impact. But we really, in our workplaces and our homes, are not having the larger conversation on, okay, these little things, walking for 5 minutes. How do you actually plan your days or plan your workplaces around these small but not insignificant changes that can help boost productivity and the mental health of the of folks? I mean, it doesn't seem like it's part of the conversation.
And I want to add another good news thing. So this actually did not get codified in the book because the data had not been fully processed, etc. But so the scientific study was actually published just a few weeks ago officially in the British Journal of Sports Medicine. And Keith, in the end, found that if your main goal is to be less anxious, to be able to focus more, to be less tired, taking 4 to 5 breaks a day is enough. So you're talking instead of sitting and, scrolling and while you drink your coffee, walk to the coffee shop with the dog in the morning. Yeah. Takes 5 minutes. If you are going out for lunch, instead of ordering in, go out and get your sandwich and bring it back. Take a lap around, for a meeting. If you have to check in with someone, go out to the parking lot and do a lap. It's not that actually is pretty doable. It just requires, as you said, intention to say after lunch, every day I take a 5-minute break, and I walk up the stairs to the top of the building and I look at the view and then I come back. It can be nice. It can feel good. Right. And what we really heard from people was it stopped being oh, I got to take a break to I get to take a break. Right. Because it feels good. Yeah. We're not asking you to do a CrossFit workout here. We're just asking you to move.
Which is, I actually think, kind of one of the more interesting parts of this is shown even more from a data standpoint on having long-term health benefits and productivity benefits than just going for, going to the gym, you say in the book, is always good. Yes. This is not an and or, but really, you don't have to go do the CrossFit workout, which is interesting. Another thing, because you really in the book talk about our digital lives affecting our physical lives. We're talking eye issues, hearing issues, breathing, posture, sleeping, all of it, which you really cover. I would love to talk about our eyes.
Oh, this is crazy stuff.
I mean, this is wild.
The human body is amazing.
It really is.
And as a journalist, you get to call up the experts and be explain it to me like I'm 5.
It's my favorite part of the job is calling the best people and the best experts in the world and being I know nothing. I kind of get it, but for other folks who might not,
Love that line. So for people who've never heard of this,
for folks listening for the first time.
Yes, and you're that's me. So this is a woman, Maria Liu. She's an ophthalmologist in Berkeley, California, but she's from China originally, where they saw earlier than anywhere else in the world this epidemic of nearsightedness in young people. So this is, you can see really well like a book or a screen, but you have trouble seeing into the distance, myopia. And they think that those, the levels were just skyrocketing. This was 20, 30 years ago. And they think it had to do with the Cultural Revolution and this idea idea that like academics were really enforced at home. If you did well in school and, got a degree, you were your parents, your family's ticket into the middle class. And so kids just, buckled down and like worked really hard. And then they saw that all these kids were wearing glasses earlier and earlier and having trouble seeing. So the other thing they started doing in China way earlier than here is actually developing techniques to turn back myopia earlier in kids. So these are now available in the US. They're Ortho-K lenses is one of the brands where you wear contact lenses actually at night and it reshapes the eyeball so that it can, wacky, so it can see in the distance and close up, and kids can get rid of their glasses. And that is because the eyeball wants to, not to anthropomorphize, but let's anthropomorphize because it's fun. It wants to please you. If you are like, I really want to look at a screen all day, and it's like, I got you. Yeah. I am going to change into a shape. Literally, it changes into an egg shape so that it can focus better on what's in front of you. Oof. It's basically saying like, you don't need me to see far. Cool. Then I won't.
Right.
So Maria's like, this is something like they're seeing kids earlier and earlier coming in with eye issues. And the thing is, you don't really want to have myopia. It's not just annoying and like, oh, so what? You wear glasses. Actually, it can lead to glaucoma, real like potentially loss of eyesight later in life. Wow. This is something you want to nip in the bud. And if you're listening and you are like in your late 20s and you're like, oh, oops, my childhood, actually the eyeball continues to grow longer than, like, for some people, even into their early 30s. So this is something that can be like at least slowed down or mitigated. So, but Maria's like, the key is you have to use your distance eyesight. By the way, I have myopia because I'm older, and it does kind of happen to everyone. And once you are myopic and your eyes have stopped growing, like that's kind of it. You're fully baked. But that blurry sensation, the burning sensation, the fatigue, this benefits also from what Maria suggests, which is like you have to go outside, because even if you're looking out a window, your brain is so smart, it knows that there's like finite points of the wall. Yeah. So going outside, gazing into the horizon, really using that long distance eyesight. They also really say like getting outside and getting sunlight on your eyes is crucial. They're not entirely sure why. Like in animals, they've seen that it releases serotonin. Maybe it's the vitamin D. They're not entirely sure. They just know that sunlight on young kids' eyes is vital, and it feels good for us too.
Yeah. I mean, because you talk about the study, and this was like 30 years, or, these people looking at this like 30 years ago. Now, if you look at something in the book, it said if a young person looks at a screen for 4 hours a day, their odds of going nearsighted can increase by 97%. I'm just thinking about walking down the street and seeing all these young people like on phones. By the way, I sound like such an old person saying that.
I know,
like,
that's hard to, it's hard like, to not sound like an old person, I know. But also like...
But I have a 17-month-old, right? I have my child's a year and a half. And so I'm beginning, like, I know parents are like, welcome to the club. But like, I'm beginning to think quite a bit about screen time. Are there, just knowing what I know, having covered technology, I'm like, oh, Charlie, the internet does not exist. You can't be on it at all.
And
ever,
for little ones, that makes total sense to me. And I guess I feel like, rather than being like, you're a terrible parent if you give your kid their phone while they're screaming and you're at the supermarket, being like, what are you doing when they're not, like, most of the rest of the time? Are they mostly like going outside? Are they moving their bodies? Are you reading to them? Are you talking to them? Those are the most important things. And if you slip and need to put on Peppa Pig because you need a frickin' minute, like, that's fine. Being a parent is really hard.
Like, what do you say to that end? Like, what are the tangible? So I read a stat like this where I'm like, oh, a young person looks at a screen for 4 hours and they'll be nearsighted. The odds that they're going to be nearsighted is 90. Yeah, we're all screwed. This is so scary. What do you say to, say, like, parents who are looking at these stats and seeing this and saying, like, well, what are some tangible things? Is it go outside? Is it, I know Apple has a feature for, distance. What are the, like, what do you say to me, a parent who's scared?
Well, I think it's fear is not much of a motivator, right?
Yeah.
Because fear means that anytime you do something, you feel shame. You feel shame that you gave your kid an iPad. You feel, I'm a bad parent because I did this. Instead, like, look at how you structure your kid's time, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's more about like, okay, fine. So let's talk about what you can do with your kid. Like, keep toys around the house, swap them out so that they seem fresh and new and more exciting than an iPad. Like, make movement like a game. Make it like normal. After dinner, you always go for a walk and you look for birds. That is like the best thing you can do because you're looking into the distance, you're getting air, you're moving yourself, you're doing something with your kid, experiencing the world. Like, I think, it's nice that all these tech people are putting their kids into Waldorf schools. That's lovely. But
can you explain what that means to folks?
Yeah, it's like this.
We'll be here all day.
Oh my God, we'll be here all day.
It's
been a trend where people who actually make the products that we're talking about don't forbid them from their children from using them and put them into Waldorf schools, which are all about, playing with natural elements and absolutely no screens whatsoever. Which, God bless. Like,
right, God bless. I'm only laughing because, like, there's so much irony in this. It's like you get
it's
to
good
create,
enough for you, but not for my children.
Yeah, it's almost like you create these products that almost like are like junk food, but then you don't give it to your own children.
Yeah, you have a private chef for your own children who only cooks organic, macrobiotic meals. Yeah, it's nice. Sort of nauseating.
Be nice. You might have to get into their compound when AI takes over. You might have to talk your way into one of their bunkers.
I'll be like, listen, I can help you use the tech you created.
Right.
But I think like this dichotomy of like either you're like a Luddite and you're off screens and flip phones only, or you're a token maxer and you're all freaking in. Like, hi, I live in the middle.
Yeah.
And I want the amazing things that tech can give me.
Yeah.
And I also want to be a healthy, well-adjusted human who enjoys the world. Like, can we not figure out this sort of middle zone? Like, I've been thinking about it. Tell me if this resonates with you.
Yeah.
As Goldilocks mode. I'm like, go into Goldilocks mode. Don't go crazy with the AI. Like, you don't need extra laptops to run agents as much as you're like kind of fascinated by that. But also like I have teenagers, I have elderly parents. I need to be on my phone. Like, going to Walden Pond or doing a digital detox is not an option. So I want to live in Goldilocks mode. Not too much, not too little.
Yeah.
It's kind of just right.
I love that. And that's actually what I love about this book, in that it isn't saying, okay, just like get rid of technology or are shaming people for interacting with the world as it was built, for us. And I think that's really important. I think one of the things that was so shocking to me in this, I guess I keep saying that because like a lot of this seems like obvious, but when it's in front of you with data,
you're like, wait, what?
You're like, is hearing loss. Like, there's the warning that 1 billion young people ages 12 to 35 are at risk of permanent avoidable hearing loss from unsafe listening practices. We are in a world where you go on the subway, or if you're not in New York, you don't go on the subway all the time, like where you walk down the street, people are listening in their earbuds, they have your AirPods, like we are constantly on these things. So what did your research find and what can we do?
So there are amazing academics doing very cool things. And this guy, Rick Neitzel at the University of Michigan, has partnered with Apple. And I know some people are like, what? You partner with the tech company? This can't be real. But there are actually, these companies are so vast that there are parts of the companies that are doing pure research. And whether that gets, built into a product or not is a whole nother conversation. In any case, Rick has been getting thousands and thousands of people to anonymously share their listening habits. So not what they're listening to, but like how long are they listening? What volume are they listening at? And then they can also remotely give them hearing tests to see tinnitus. Are you experiencing tinnitus? Can you hear this tone or not? Yeah. You can opt into different levels. You can sign up right now. It's fascinating stuff. And so he's actually an exposure scientist, meaning that he's not only measuring what we artificially are putting into our ears, but generally like the world, like what are we exposed to in terms of sound? The world is getting louder, right? We are more people. there's more traffic, all of those things. And I don't know about you, but what do you do when you walk by a construction site and you have your AirPods in? You boost the volume.
Yeah.
So what he's trying to see is we don't know necessarily like if all that listening is affecting cognitive function. Some people think it is. We don't actually know. But what we do know is that all that listening, and it, particularly at loud volumes, affects the little tiny hairs in your ear. So if you listen, you know, when you come out of like a concert and you like can't hear very well, those are the cilia. They get damaged and tired. And here we go back to the original discussion. What do they need? They need breaks. So if you're listening all the time, make sure you give yourself some silence every day to let those little hairs rest, recharge, come back. But if you constantly bombard them with levels that are unsafe, and you can actually go into your iPhone settings and make sure you have like a max set. It is possible in your settings to do a better job with that. But also lie down and listen to nothing for 5 minutes. Let your little guys in there rest and come back. Because once they are killed, that's it. You are born with a finite amount of these guys. They don't regenerate, and you can't grow more.
I mean, why do you think that this risk gets so little airtime compared to something like screen time, mental health? Because when you talk about like the larger points, it's like this actually isn't just about hearing loss. This can contribute to loss of memory, balance, socialization.
Yeah, right. I think we think of it as an old person's problem, like hearing loss, you know, and it's a slow motion sort of thing that's happening. It's not going to happen to you like tomorrow.
Right.
It's a slow build. It is a months, years of habits that add up. And as someone who's now extremely middle-aged, I don't think I would have believed that when I was 25, you know, whatever. Like, okay, old, you know, Gen Xer, whatever. But then as you get older, you're like, oh, wow, these long days, it's like why I was scared to write the book. It's like I feel it in my body. Or like my husband, who is a TV reporter who's been wearing an IFB, you know, one of those ear things for years and years and years. He can't hear well out of that ear. God. And it's annoying to have a husband who can't hear you very well. You're repeating yourself constantly. And like, we're not elderly, you know? Yeah. So I think it's just, it's hard to feel urgent about a situation that is a slow-moving crisis.
You know, speaking of a slow-moving crisis, I just, in reading this, I was thinking, I'm just going to confess this to you because I feel like if I say it out loud, I'll be more accountable.
Oh, good. Okay, I'm listening.
Okay. So oftentimes my son, you know, if he gets up in the middle of the night, like he's 17 months, this happens.
Yes.
You know, we just don't sleep.
So sorry.
What is it?
You are in it right now.
Thank you for your thoughts during this time.
Mm-hmm.
And I will sometimes go, you know, be with him. Then I can't get back to sleep. But my husband sitting next to me is asleep, so I don't know what to do.
So you look at your phone.
Not only do I look at my phone, this is where we go like all in. I sometimes relax to Law and Order SVU. So like obviously there's like some psychological issues with that, but like let's put those aside. So I will watch.
And how long will you watch?
Okay, this
like
is
multiple episodes.
So
till the sun comes up. What is happening?
This is so upsetting. I will, and I've tried to do a little better on this. I can't believe I'm saying this out loud, but I will put in my AirPods, and I will just watch it and try, you know, like curl up and like pray that Charlie doesn't get up again.
You're self-soothing.
And watch some like and then watch some SVU, and I will have the AirPods in, and then I'll fall asleep. And I'll wake up and maybe one will be out and like maybe like the phone is like whatever. But I'm like, how long?
So it is putting you back to sleep.
But I'm like, how long did I just sit with that in my ears right overnight? Anyway, and so in reading this, I'm like, Segall, get it together. Like this is not something you can get used to.
Is it very loud?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, so just like go into your settings, make sure you have it set at the lowest max that there is so that you can't boost it.
Yeah.
And I mean, give yourself a break too. Like you have a baby.
Sorry, I don't want to turn this into a Laurie therapy session.
I think there is this sort of like, let's think critically about it, right? Like I know we all love rules. Never do this. Always do that. But like you're a human being and you are in a really tough time in your life. And like sleep, if this is working for you, what's the most important thing? Is it that you don't have AirPods? No. The most important thing is that you and your baby rest.
And honestly, I want Olivia and Elliot to get together finally. SVU fans,
Well,
you know what I'm talking about.
I can't help you with that. I don't know what you're talking about, but
you're 100% correct.
And let's like think of what the alternative was. That you're like, I get on my laptop and I answer emails.
Yeah.
Like at least you're trying to like disconnect and just like power down a little bit. And this, the way you're doing it is okay, maybe not ideal,
right?
But you're figuring out a way that's working for you.
You know what's interesting about the book is that it really the kindness that you just gave me. Thank you.
Oh, I've been there.
But that it really does give a lot of solutions that don't feel like impossible. Like it sounds like a no-brainer. Go outside, but when you put science behind some of this, and you say, actually, you don't need to do this X amount of times. 4 breaks a day. You need to build out your day, and it actually seems really tangible in a way that that isn't as scary and dystopian as what we hear oftentimes on social media or just in general when we're looking at stats with no context. So the last one I want to get to.
And I want to say also, like, my hope is like you and I and anybody listening that we're going to live for a long time. And this is something you can do for the rest of your life. And I want to be clear, like, if walking is not an option, you can pump your arms for 5 minutes while you watch TV. That is great too. That's been shown to have a lot of benefits. And so this, I feel like we talk like these outrageous goals and really like just move more. And that feels good. And try to do it for 5 minutes, 5 times a day.
And there's like huge benefits, like from what all the research shows. The connection between breath and our posture also very interesting.
It's bringing us back to the kazoo.
I know we started with the kazoo and we're coming full circle. So can you walk us through what happens when we sit down and how that connects to our breathing and our mental health, and maybe perhaps this kazoo that you have offered me, how this can help?
Yes. Glad to. So this was actually something that was brought to my attention years and years ago, many people's attention, by a tech executive, now retired, named Linda Stone. So Linda was just one of those people who was ahead of her time, and she wrote about something she called it screen apnea. And this idea that she was having actually health issues, and she would notice that whenever she was on her laptop, she would hold her breath, or she would have shallow breaths.
Wow.
And I was like, and then you start thinking about it. You're like, oh shit, I do that too, right? Like, okay, so when you're seated, you are sort of bent in like cashew or like boiled shrimp position, right? Which constricts your diaphragm. It means that you can't fully fill. Like if you touch your midsection right now and you breathe in, that should open up, right? And sitting makes it harder to do that.
Right.
It means you have to take more breaths in order to get the same amount of oxygen. More breaths actually starts to increase your anxiety, it increases the fight or flight sort of mode. It turns into a whole thing. So she did a kitchen sort of table scientific experiment where she invited different people of different walks of life, musicians, software engineers, a pilot, all kinds of people. And she measured, like she put them in front of the computer to answer their email to see and she measured their breath and their heart rate variability, which is a way of measuring stress as well. And the people who did the best were the musician, the dancer, the pilot, people who learned how to use their body with their tools and they continued to breathe properly.
Wow, that's interesting.
Really fascinating. So to me, the lesson is like you are an information athlete. Yeah. You need to breathe, getting up, taking deep breaths makes a difference. And then Linda turned me on. I mean, can you be turned on by a kazoo? No, I don't think you really can. However,
I don't know for folks, this is a very sexy blue kazoo.
It's a pretty sexy body electric kazoo. But they now are sending kazoos, and there's a hospital in North Carolina, to people who have had lung cancer because blowing in a kazoo increases your diaphragmatic ability to sort of build it, right? It builds your lung capacity. It gets more air going. So her trick is play your freaking kazoo, laugh at yourself. That also increases your oxygenation of your brain. And just remind yourself to have fun and breathe.
I love that.
I know, right?
I love that. For people we love, we could just send them kazoos to some 100%. Degree and say this is actually something
at this point, I really need to embarrass you and get you to play the kazoo.
Oh, don't worry. I was already going to embarrass myself and say, don't worry, I'm in with you.
You could vibe code, or you could play a kazoo.
I'm going to play the kazoo, and then I also would love for us to try the physiological sigh together.
Oh yeah,
I've never even played a kazoo. Let's just do it.
You just hum. You don't blow. Actually, you hum.
This is so embarrassing.
It's really.
This is almost as embarrassing as when AI generated me with very large breasts, which was the last one we did.
How did I miss that one?
It's because it comes out tomorrow.
Oh,
so.
right. Okay.
Yeah.
Excited for that.
Okay. So just hum into
just
it.
Just hum Yankee Doodle. Yeah. There you go.
God,
it's ludicrous, and you look really silly, but it's kind of fun.
I like that.
I know. And
I love it.
That's one you can do with Charlie, the two of you.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
That's amazing.
Totally.
You kind of teach him to breathe.
So get up, do a little Yankee Doodle. You will be like, who cares about that nasty email I got and whatever about my deadline? I feel good about my body.
I want the kazoo to be like my safe instrument. If I'm on a really bad call, I would love to just use the kazoo, which I can't, obviously, but that's
right? You could
call
I'm
helping all of us. So I want to talk horns and ticks, if you will just go with me for a second.
You're going way back to misinformation.
I know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Years ago, there was a study that implied that smartphones were making millennials grow horns.
Yes.
I just remember.
Do you remember that?
How could I not? I remember sending this to someone and being like,
hell?
Now we're going to have horns? Cool. Can you just fact check us?
No. And I think this is, okay, so this this thing, it was in Australia, they've discovered that, millennials from hunching over their phones are now growing horns. What they really meant was a couple people in this study that was done by people who actually were peddling an ergonomic tool. They had found that there were bone spurs on their backs.
Right.
There was, I don't exactly know the details, but there were a lot of problems with this study. But I think what it does really well is illustrate, if you've got a sexy headline and the headline is saying something that you're I kind of feel like that's possible, right? Maybe I am growing horns. I don't know. It just spreads like wildfire, but it is not helpful. And I think, we're in this weird place with misinformation, particularly wellness or health misinformation, where an AI is, supercharging this. We have to, we're in this, science is not moving fast enough, right?
Yeah.
We are not keeping up with all the things that are changing us. So my thinking is, let's bring people into the process. Let's not rely on these headlines that are being peddled by all kinds of people.
Yeah.
Let's have bigger conversations. Let's test things ourselves and report back. And I'm not talking about peptide stacks. I'm talking about basic things that we all are feeling are true, but that small things that have been scientifically verified, like movement, like getting fresh air, like exercise, like getting in nature, can make a difference.
Yeah. I thought I really remember that, and I'm annoyed that it got as far as it did, with all of us thinking these types of things. But you're right; it was a really sexy headline based on some scientific research where there was maybe one teeny little part that if you looked at it through this lens,
exactly.
I also
because right now, do you know anyone who has? I mean, they've been looking at their phone for a long time now, Laurie, a decade since
not
that
article.
I
know of, but please call in, listeners.
Yes, we'd love to know.
If you have horns, we want to hear from you.
Yes, definitely.
So I want to talk about the TikTok ticks.
Oh, yeah.
Can social media really give us a physical tick?
So people might remember there was this phenomenon during the pandemic where it seemed like young women in particular were coming down with having verbal tics. And this has been seen before. There was the dancing plague centuries. People couldn't stop dancing. They literally danced themselves to death.
That's wild.
Havana syndrome is another sort of thing. This idea of a behavior that spreads in a contagious sort of way. But this was the first time it was documented to happen actually on social media. So that was the question. Can this happen? But what happened was they kind of came and then went as quickly as possible. And it's not like you or I this would necessarily happen to us. When researchers went back and studied, the girls and young women who had this, they had a propensity towards anxiety and depression. And like being in a pandemic, being stuck inside, it can affect people in all kinds of ways. And they don't, maybe it was each child is different, right? Maybe they wanted to be part of something. Maybe they were sort of like very cracked open. The point is there are vulnerable populations who, need extra care, and like being stuck inside without being like regular socialization. We're still seeing the effects of that on teenagers today and people in their 20s. So yes, things can happen, but it's not like wildfire. Everybody's going to have tics. Like that's the crucial thing.
So part of what I love to do with the show is tell people I'm interviewing someone, see if they have questions. And a lot of folks were very excited about this topic when I put this out there. Which doesn't shock me because like I just feel like it's like your study. We all have a body, for now, you know. This is from a woman named Ash Brown.
Okay.
She says, has our screen use led to more of an increase in adult ADHD diagnosis, or is it simply increased awareness?
Complex question.
Right.
And I'll give a complex answer. Sorry.
Great.
So first of all, multiple things are happening here. One is like, yes, if you are, this is research done by informatics researcher at UC Irvine, Gloria Mark, who studies attention and how we, pay attention to things. And she has found that if you've had like a really busy morning, like you're switching between tasks on your computer for an hour, you're checking your email, you're doing all these things, and then the next hour is kind of like it slows down and nobody's really interrupting you, you will start to interrupt yourself. So almost not quite half of all the interruptions we experience in a day are self-interruptions, which is kind of hilarious, but also a little bit depressing.
Yeah.
Is that ADHD? No, right? Like that is there is a diagnosable way of studying or of deciding whether somebody has ADHD, but it can mimic the symptoms. So there are some researchers, I think they're in Toronto, who are saying, we have two types of diabetes, right? There's the kind you're born with, and then there's the kind that develops based on lifestyle and habits.
Yeah.
Maybe we need two diagnoses for ADHD. This is not a thing, but they're proposing it. They're saying maybe there's the kind that like genetically you are born with, and then there's the kind that it mimics the same symptoms. It feels like you have ADHD because you can't concentrate. So I think there's also a rising awareness. Like people talk about anxiety, depression, ADHD more than they did when I was growing up.
Yeah.
And then there's also like, social media where there's a lot of self-diagnosis.
Yeah.
Or we throw things around like I'm addicted to my phone. Technically, according to the psychiatric experts, you are not actually addicted, but it mimics the symptoms and you feel that way. And so that's the language that we use. And so it's a nuanced conversation, one that has to happen between your doctor. And to say to yourself, like, these feelings that I'm having, they're real for sure. One of the best ways, I think, to sort of try to get back to equilibrium and feel good is by thinking of interoception. So interoception is that conversation between the body and the brain, right? Like, you absentmindedly take off your jacket because it got hot in the room, or you need to go to the bathroom, right? There is early research showing that too much time on screens actually interrupts that interoceptive ability. And I've felt that. Like I'm sucked into my screen. I totally lose track of time.
Yep.
Oh my God, I look up, hours have gone by, my back is killing me.
Yeah.
So what we found, though, with our study, just to go to Body Electric, was that many people used a timer to remind themselves to take breaks. But by the end of the 2-week period, they didn't need the timer. They said, I actually don't need to set a timer. My body tells me when I need to move. So listening to what is your body telling you, or what is that feeling that you have to switch between screens?
Yeah.
That's a sign, right? It's your body saying, like, this isn't working for me. Can we literally go lie down for half an hour and just decompress?
Yeah.
That's a reset, an easy reset.
Yeah. Not complex. I think it's interesting. I mean, that's, that's fascinating. From Sarah Adler, she says, as a former spine researcher, I've been following tech neck syndrome. Can you talk about rising incident rates, if this can be reversed, and other than texting less, are there advisable positions with which to text?
I mean, your body wants to be in different positions. So if you're holding your body at this position for hours and hours, as we talked about, like with our eyeballs, like it will comply. It will get into the position that it thinks you basically want to be in all the time. So the key is just not being static. It's like if you're looking down, I mean, I do it too. It's not easy. Let's acknowledge that. But I'm really working hard to go the opposite way with my physical therapist, which is like, okay, I spend all my time like this, hunched over my devices. I need to spend more time going the other way and building back my back muscles. I think this is a lifelong struggle in a world built around screens. Will that change with VR and, dictation software and devices that talk to us? Maybe. It might. It'll be interesting to see. But right now, I think there's also something nice in a way about having like a phone that you can put down and not being ambiently surrounded by your tech.
Totally.
So these are all the trade-offs that we have to consider.
I want to talk a little bit about tech and kids. And I know we've talked about this a bit. You have an interesting take on this. I want to play you a clip. We had Dr. Becky on the show.
Oh, love Dr. Becky.
Parenting expert extraordinaire.
Yeah.
And we played a parenting question for her. A parent wanted to know how to talk to her 12-year-old about artificial intelligence. This is what she said, so just want your response.
If we don't understand what feels good about something, we're going to always miss out with our kids about the things that draw them to that thing. And if we don't understand what's going to draw them to AI emotionally, and a lot will, then they're going to have to keep that entire part of their life separate from us, and we won't hear about it. And the way I would just keep that conversation open versus closed is if I was going to close the conversation, and it would feel better to a parent because it feels final. You'd say, I'm glad we talked about this. So don't go to ChatGPT for emotional stuff. Do go to logical stuff. Right. And like I tell myself, I feel like really good as a parent. I just think life is a lot messier than that. Like I just don't think at age 12 now, from 12 through whenever, every time my kid's going through something emotionally, they're going to think, I remember that talk I had with my parent. They said, yes, this, no, this. So that's what I'm going to do. That's not how our emotions work. I'd rather leave a conversation open like this. Again, I'm so glad you told me that. Look, there's probably going to be a moment when something feels emotionally hard, emotionally messy. And maybe you might think about coming to me, but there might be something enticing about just talking to a computer who probably is always available, never has their own agenda, never gets upset, and always says something that's like, that feels good. And I just want to tell you, when that moment comes, when that feels interesting or enticing, that's actually a moment I'd love you to tell me about. I anticipate the moment's going to come. Maybe it already has. I'm not kind of ignorant to that fact. And so what I'm really doing is in some ways I'm opening the door for more conversations instead of kind of closing all those future doors.
So wise.
I know.
So wise, so hard.
Yeah.
I have a 16-year-old and a 19-year-old, and those conversations need to start really early before they want to test out being an adult, right? I think those crucial conversations like age, starting pretty young, 8, 9, 10, like that, just laying the groundwork for that. It is not easy.
Yeah.
But what Dr. Becky said also reminds me of advice that another researcher, Candace Odgers, she's a child developmental psychologist who does a lot of research into teens and screens. And she said, like, crucially, the key thing is to say, like, we can talk about this, but also they need to know you're not going to take away their device or their access, that they won't be punished if they tell you about something, that they can have the conversation with you and it doesn't mean that it's forbidden.
Yeah.
And I think that's just such good advice. And also what I think they're both saying is like, I think it was Candace who told me this actually. She was totally anti Fortnite and with her kids, like she's like, we don't do shoot 'em up games in this household. And then the pandemic happened and all the kids were like, on headphones, and it was the only way they could socialize was on Fortnite. And her kids were like, what the hell? We're not allowed to play. So she was like, let's do it. So she sat down with them and they played for an entire weekend. And she's like, I get it. This is a social thing.
Yeah.
And then they could also talk about like, oh my God, Mom, we played the blah, blah, blah. And she said it just was so like, before you shut it out, be willing to try, be willing to have the conversation, do the experiment together. I always say to parents too, like, blame me. Like, be like, this weird woman wants us to experiment with movement breaks. Like, what?
Right.
She sounds crazy. And then find out together. And maybe it doesn't work for you, but maybe it does.
Yeah. I like so much about your work that you really resist the demonize the device approach, which I think is important.
Yeah.
Now, there's an inevitability about this, and there are good things that do come from it, and bad, and we have to have space for a bit of all of it. So I don't think I really see on social media a lot about what the device is doing to your neck, your body, your breathing, your eyesight. Why is that, and how can we inspire a cultural change around that?
I mean, my theory is this is very American in many ways. Like, you have people, we're a nation of extremes in so many topics.
Yeah.
But particularly when it comes to our bodies, right?
Yeah.
Like, that we are like, I kill it at the gym and then I grind it out during the day.
Yeah.
And actually, those people are referred to by researchers as active couch potatoes because it's great that you're working out during the day, but then the other extreme is also not good for you.
Yeah.
So this idea, like, I mean, moderation sounds so boring, but as the philosopher pointed out to me, they're like, that goes back to Aristotle. Like, this idea that, like, you don't have to be extreme to live a good life, to feel something, you know?
Yeah.
And so this middle ground, again, this discernment, this idea of, like, I think we're so hungry to feel amazing, to max ourselves out, whether it's our muscles or our bank accounts, that we forget the smaller pleasures, like walking down the street, talking to our neighbor. Maybe you don't know their name, but that's fine. Like, just talk. Like, the World Cup was so nice for that. I felt like it's the simpler pleasures that I think that we're missing out on these days, and that can make such a huge difference and add just texture and vibrancy to our lives.
Which is something I really appreciate about Body Electric, which is just this idea of how do you actually make real small changes in a very tangible way. I always like to kind of end with, what I'm about to say just sounds so cheesy now that I'm about to say it, but I'm like, I love to end with a manifest. That is not me. I'm not a wellness person who ends with a manifest.
I can go there.
But I kind of love this idea of, like, so you say, like, tech isn't neutral, it changes us. And right now it feels like our bodies are collateral damage. I don't disagree with that. The next part you say is, but we can't just upgrade the operating system.
Yeah.
That's not how humans work. But we can recalibrate them and reclaim what makes us human. Beautifully written. You must be a writer. Love
thanks.
that. I want to manifest it now. Paint me a picture of a world where we reclaim our humanity, where tech is at its best, where we're designed for movement. Let's just, like, manifest this right here, right now.
So I'm not a futurist. I feel like I live in the mediocre middle, which is like looking at 12 months to 24 months out. So let's go there.
Let's manifest 12 to 24 months out.
Okay, that seems reasonable to me. I would love in a year or two for people to be able to say to their colleagues, ooh, I need a move break. And then be like, oh, you know what? I'll come out with you too. Not that different than a smoke break. We used to go outside and put poison into our lungs, and that was socially acceptable. What if we were like, I need a move break. Cool. I would like for teenagers not to have, not to think that they have to grind it out for hours and hours on their laptops, but to be able to tell themselves that taking breaks is actually okay. Not to look at another screen as a break, but to feel better in their bodies.
Yeah.
I would like us to do the hard work of not just having bans on 16 and unders from social media, but to do the things that we actually know is good for adult and child mental health and reduces anxiety and depression, which is have more teachers in the schools, to pay them proper wages, to make sure people have health care, to shocking, I know.
Imagine that.
Right? To actually potentially legislate tech companies where they have to get the toxicity off of their platforms and make it safe for everyone, not ask kids to send in photos of themselves to verify that they're under 16, which, wait, haven't we been telling our kids not to give away their privacy?
Yeah.
So there's that. I'm going all over the place here.
I love this.
I want us to feel like we have agency, that we want to use the tech tools and think harder about what they do best for us, how they help us figure things out, but also that we begin to trust and listen to our own bodies and our minds too. I'm really I'm feeling this.
Great.
And I would like us to just take a moment, each one of us every day, to not just ask like, what do I want to achieve today? But like, what do I want to feel today? Like one emotion or one sensation that we'd like to feel.
I really like that.
That's all I've got.